They laughed at him because he was human. They mocked him because he was small. And when she said, "You're too weak to guard me, human," no one in the room believed he would survive the night. No one imagined he would become the reason an entire alien empire would fall silent. The docking hall of Karen Station trembled as another cruiser locked into place. The sound rolled through metal corridors like distant thunder, shaking loose dust that had been trapped for years. Species from 100 worlds moved through the hall, tall, scaled, floating, armored, each confident in their strength. At the far end of the hall stood a single human. His name was Elias Crow, and he did not look impressive. He was shorter than most aliens, thinner than station security standards recommended, and dressed in a plain grey coat with no rank markings. No visible weapons. No armor. Just calm eyes and a posture that suggested patience rather than power. Elias was a contract escort. That was the polite term. In reality, it meant he stood where trouble was most likely to happen and made sure it didn't spill too far. Today, trouble arrived in ceremonial gold. She entered the hall surrounded by alien guards, towering beings with 4 arms and crystal-edged shields. At their center walked Vilrix of House Thal, a high-ranking envoy from the Aurelian Combine. She stood nearly 10 feet tall, her silver-blue skin marked with glowing symbols of authority. Her eyes were sharp, ancient, and calculating. When she stopped in front of Elias, the entire hall seemed to pause. "You," she said, her voice smooth and cutting. "This is my assigned protection." Elias met her gaze. "Yes, Her guards shifted, clearly amused. Vilrix looked him up and down slowly. "You are fragile." "I've been called worse." A ripple of alien laughter echoed through the hall. She leaned closer, towering over him. "You're too weak to guard me, human." The words were not shouted. They were spoken softly, confidently, like a fact already proven. Elias did not argue. Instead, he nodded once. Understood. That seemed to irritate her more than anger would have. "You accept this insult?" she asked. "I accept reality," Elias replied. "You don't need someone who looks strong. You need someone who notices things." Vilrix scoffed. Arrogance wrapped in humility. Typical. She turned away, dismissing him completely. "Stay out of my way." And just like that, Elias Crow became invisible. Karen Station was neutral ground, but everyone knew neutrality was fragile. Rumors spread fast, whispers of an upcoming vote that could shift control of several trade routes. Vilrix's presence alone meant danger. Assassins always followed power. Elias walked a few steps behind her entourage, hands relaxed, eyes constantly moving. He noticed things others ignored. The way the crowd's flow subtly changed near a maintenance corridor. The slight delay in station lights sinking above a service tunnel. The absence of sound where there should have been humming machinery. Humans survived by pattern recognition long before they mastered the stars. Elias touched the small device hidden under his sleeve, an old human tool upgraded beyond what most alien techs considered necessary. It fed him probabilities, not certainties. The numbers shifted. Risk level rising. Ahead, Vilrix stopped suddenly. "What is it?" one guard asked. She raised a hand. "Something feels wrong." Elias stepped forward for the first time. "We should alter the route." She turned sharply. "I did not ask." The corridor exploded. Not fire. Not light. Gravity folded inward. One of the guards vanished instantly, crushed into nothing by a localized gravity spike. Another was thrown against the wall, armor crumpling like foil. Screams erupted. Assassins emerged from hidden panels, 6 of them, sleek, fast, armed with weapons that bent physics rather than bullets. Vilrix's guards reacted instantly, shields flaring, weapons firing. Elias moved. Not toward the attackers. Toward Vilrix. He grabbed her wrist and pulled. "What are you?" she began. The gravity spike expanded where she had been standing a second earlier. Her eyes widened. Elias dragged her behind a structural support beam just as a beam of distorted energy sliced through the space they had occupied. "You insulted me," she hissed. Now you endanger me further. Elias said calmly, pressing her against the beam, his body shielding hers despite the size difference. This is the part where you stay alive. Another blast shook the hall. One assassin leapt forward, landing far too close. Veilrix struggled against Elias's grip. Release me. I will fight. You will die, he said simply. He reached into his coat, not for a weapon, but for a small metal sphere. He rolled it across the floor. The assassin fired. The shot curved, then bent sharply and slammed into the ceiling as the sphere activated, warping local physics for half a second. Just enough. The assassin stumbled. Veilrix watched, stunned, as Elias moved with sudden precision, every step placed where danger wasn't, every motion economical. He didn't overpower the assassin. He redirected them. One push. One angle. One moment. The attacker fell into their own gravity trap and vanished. Silence followed. Station security finally arrived, weapons raised, but it was over. Veilrix stared at Elias. Her guards, what remained of them, stared too. You predicted that, she said slowly. I noticed it, Elias corrected. She looked down at his hand still gripping her wrist. You are human, she said. Your species is known for chaos and weakness. Elias released her and stepped back. We're known for surviving. For the first time, Veilrix did not mock him. The station lights stabilized. Alarms faded. But something else had changed. The galaxy had underestimated a human again. And this time, it had done so at the worst possible moment. Veilrix did not speak as they moved through the secured corridors of Karen Station. Her long stride had slowed, unconsciously matching Elias's pace. Around them, station security sealed off passages, their voices sharp with urgency. The remains of the ambush were already being erased, bloodless scorch marks cleaned, broken panels replaced. Power always preferred its messes invisible. Elias noticed everything. He noticed how Veilrix's breathing was steady, but her pulse was not. He noticed the way her fingers flexed near the energy blade at her hip, not in fear, but frustration. And he noticed something else, something far more dangerous. She was thinking. You knew, she said at last. Before it happened. I suspected, Elias replied. Knowing comes later. She stopped walking and turned to face him fully. Up close, her presence was overwhelming. Aurelian envoys were engineered, biology refined over centuries. Strength, intelligence, longevity. Humans, by comparison, were considered temporary creatures. And yet, Veilrix said slowly, you reacted faster than my guards. They were trained to fight, Elias said. I was trained to prevent. She studied him in silence, then turned away again. You are not what I expected. That makes two of us. They entered a private transit lift, guarded now by station elites. As the doors sealed, Veilrix activated a privacy field. The hum of the lift became distant, muted. You should explain yourself, she said. Elias leaned against the wall, careful not to appear relaxed. What would you like explained? How a species known for internal conflict and physical weakness produces someone like you? Elias smiled faintly. That is the explanation. She frowned. Clarify. Humans grew up fighting nature, not each other, he said. Predators. Weather. Scarcity. We didn't survive by being the strongest. We survived by learning faster than the things trying to kill us. The lift continued its silent ascent. Veilrix crossed her arms. And this learning makes you superior. No, Elias said. It makes us careful. The lift doors opened into a secured diplomatic wing. The air was cleaner here, filtered to match Aurelian preferences. Veilrix paused at the threshold. The assassins were not random, she said. They were sent. I assumed. They used gravity weapons, she continued. That technology is restricted. Only 3 factions possess it. Elias's eyes sharpened. Which means? Someone wants my vote removed, she said. Permanently. Elias nodded once. Then we don't stay here. She turned sharply. This is the most secure station in the sector. Which makes it predictable. She stared at him. You are telling me to flee. I'm telling you, Elias said calmly, that security systems are designed by people who think like systems. Assassins think like hunters. Humans think like survivors. For a long moment, Vilrix said nothing. Then she did something unexpected. Very well, she said. You will advise me. Elias blinked. Advise. You are still my bodyguard, she added, her tone sharp. Do not mistake this for trust. Wouldn't dream of it. They relocated to an auxiliary observation deck, unused, partially decommissioned. The kind of place no one important ever visited. Elias liked it immediately. He moved through the space, noting blind spots, reflections, sound echoes. Vilrix watched him with narrowed eyes. You act as if you have been hunted before, she said. I have, Elias replied. She waited. Before humans joined the wider galaxy, he continued, we hunted each other with ideas. Strategy. Misdirection. That doesn't go away just because we start shaking hands. Vilrix considered that. The Combine believes humans are dangerous because of unpredictability. That's polite of them. She almost smiled. Almost. A soft chime echoed through the chamber. Incoming transmission. Vilrix stiffened. That channel is restricted. Elias was already moving. Someone wants us to hear this. The projection flickered to life. A tall figure appeared, thin, elongated, draped in dark, flowing fabric that shifted like smoke. Its face was hidden behind a mask of polished black metal. The Umbra Syndicate sends its regards, the figure said. Vilrix's jaw tightened. You dare speak to me directly. You survived, the figure replied. Unexpected. Elias stepped slightly to the side, watching reflections instead of the projection itself. Your vote threatens balance, the figure continued. Withdraw, and you may yet leave this station alive. Vilrix's voice was cold. Is that a threat? It is a courtesy. Elias cleared his throat. The figure paused. You are the human. I am, Elias said. And you're projecting from too close. Silence. Then the figure laughed. Impressive. But meaningless. Elias tapped his wrist device. You routed through station node C17. Old hardware. Human-made. The projection flickered. I just sent your signal path to 3 independent enforcement agencies, Elias continued, including one you bribed last cycle. The projection cut abruptly. Vilrix stared at him. You just declared war, she said. Elias shrugged. They already did. She studied him with new intensity. You weaponize information as easily as others wield blades. It weighs less, he replied. She stepped closer. You were mocked today. Dismissed. And yet you stand between me and forces that frighten even my people. Elias met her gaze evenly. Fear is data. She tilted her head. And courage. He thought for a moment. Courage is acting after you understand the data. Outside the observation deck, the station continued its quiet rotation. Ships arrived. Ships departed. Civilizations negotiated their futures with calm voices and hidden knives. Vilrix looked out at the stars. Human, she said quietly, if I survive this, the galaxy will change. Elias followed her gaze. It already has, he said. Because somewhere in the shadows, powerful beings were realizing a terrible mistake. They had underestimated humanity. And humans had never been kind to those who did that twice. The observation deck lights dimmed automatically as Karen Station shifted into a higher security posture. Somewhere deep within the structure, bulkheads sealed and routes changed, but Elias did not need alerts to know that things were accelerating. Vilrix stood at the viewport, tall and motionless, watching the stars drift past. Her reflection in the glass looked calm, but Elias could sense the tension in her stance. Aurelians were not easily shaken. That meant the threat was real. They will not stop now, she said. Umbra never retreats after a failed strike. They don't need to, Elias replied. They just need us tired. She turned to face him. Explain. Elias paced slowly, hands clasped behind his back. Most species fight like storms. Loud. Violent. Short. Humans learned to fight like winter. We wait. We drain. We endure until the enemy makes a mistake. Veilrix considered that. And what mistake will they make? Elias stopped and met her eyes. They'll assume we think like they do. A sharp alert flashed across his wrist device. Multiple heat signatures. Moving fast. Coordinated. They've already breached the wing, he said. Veilrix reached for her energy blade. Then we fight. Elias shook his head. Not yet. She frowned. You delay again. I prepare, he corrected. He moved quickly now, activating dormant systems in the observation deck. Panels slid open, revealing maintenance nodes and old human-installed hardware, leftovers from when humans were still considered harmless technicians. Veilrix watched in silence as Elias worked. You planned this? She asked. I hoped I wouldn't need it. The deck lights flickered once. Then the temperature dropped slightly. Footsteps echoed in the corridor outside, heavy, confident, unhurried. They're armored, Elias said, and expecting resistance. Veilrix tightened her grip on her blade. You intend to surprise them. I intend to confuse them. The door slid open. 4 figures entered, tall and imposing, wearing Umbra combat suits that bent light around their edges. Their helmets glowed faintly as targeting systems locked on. Envoy Veilrix, one said. This does not have to be painful. Elias stepped forward. The assassins paused. A human, the leader said with mild amusement. You are persistent. Elias smiled faintly. You have no idea. He tapped his wrist. The gravity on the deck shifted, not enough to crush, not enough to alarm, just enough to misalign. The assassins staggered slightly, recalibrating. Veilrix moved instantly, blade flashing, forcing them to split their focus. Elias threw a small device onto the floor. It activated with a soft hum. Suddenly, the room filled with echoes. False footsteps. False heat signatures. Reflections that didn't match movements. The assassins fired. They hit nothing. Veilrix struck from above, her size and strength finally unleashed. One attacker fell, armor split. Another turned, only to find Elias already behind him. Elias did not punch. He pulled. At the exact moment the assassin shifted weight, Elias redirected the motion. The assassin crashed into a support column with lethal force. The leader roared and charged. Veilrix met him head-on, but even she staggered as his strength pushed her back. Elias saw the imbalance. He always did. He grabbed a loose cable, wrapped it around the assassin's leg, and yanked sideways. The assassin fell. Veilrix ended the fight with a single decisive strike. Silence returned to the deck. Veilrix stood breathing heavily. Elias leaned against a console, steadying himself. You are injured, she said, noticing the blood on his sleeve. Superficially, he replied. I'll live. She looked down at the fallen assassins. They were elite. They were predictable. She studied him again, longer this time. You fight like a strategist, not a soldier. I fight like someone who knows he can't afford fair fights. The station alarms shifted tone. A broader alert now. They will escalate, Veilrix said. Umbra will not risk another failure. Elias nodded. That's when it gets dangerous. How? They'll stop trying to kill you quietly. The station lights went out. Emergency illumination flooded the corridor in deep red. A station-wide announcement echoed, unidentified forces have seized control of multiple sectors. Veilrix's eyes widened. They're taking the station. They're making an example, Elias said grimly. She turned to him. Then my presence endangers everyone here. Yes, Elias said. And if we leave, they'll follow. Then what do you propose? Elias looked around the observation deck one last time. We stay just long enough to make them regret it. Veelrix stared at him. You would challenge an organization that manipulates entire systems. Elias met her gaze steadily. Humans once challenged extinction itself. A faint tremor ran through the station. Umbra forces were moving openly now. Veelrix stepped closer to Elias. If you fail. I know. She hesitated, then placed one massive hand on his shoulder. You are still small, she said quietly. Still fragile. He looked up at her. And yet, she continued, I believe the galaxy has misunderstood your species. Elias allowed himself a thin smile. That misunderstanding has kept us alive. They moved together into the red-lit corridor, toward danger rather than away from it. Because this was the truth the stars were about to learn. When humans were cornered. When survival was no longer optional. They did not break. They adapted. And adaptation, once complete, was unstoppable. The corridors of Karan Station no longer felt neutral. Red emergency lights pulsed in slow rhythm, painting metal walls in warning colors. Smoke drifted from damaged conduits. Somewhere far below, something heavy exploded, sending a vibration through the floor that Elias felt in his bones. Umbra was no longer hiding. They've locked down civilian sectors, Veelrix said as they moved. Her voice was tight, controlled, but Elias could hear the anger beneath it. They are using fear as leverage. Classic pressure tactic, Elias replied. Force mistakes. Force panic. They underestimate the chaos they've unleashed. So do you, Elias said quietly. She glanced down at him. Explain. Elias slowed, crouching near a damaged wall panel. He pulled it open, revealing a nest of cables and blinking nodes, old, messy, human-built systems that had been patched and repatched over decades. This station wasn't designed by one species, he said. It grew. Humans helped wire it. We leave fingerprints in places no one bothers to clean. He connected a thin data filament from his wrist device into the panel. Veelrix watched the scrolling data in silence. What are you doing? She asked. Waking up ghosts. Across the station, lights flickered, not off, not on, but confused. Doors opened and closed without pattern. Holographic signs displayed outdated information. Navigation arrows spun uselessly. Umbra forces hesitated. They were trained for resistance, not unpredictability. Elias pulled the filament free. We've just made the station hostile to everyone except those who can improvise. Veelrix exhaled slowly. You are turning infrastructure into a weapon. We learned early, Elias said, that tools don't have to look like weapons. They moved again, passing frightened civilians huddled in alcoves. Veelrix slowed, her massive form blocking stray fire and debris as Elias guided people into safer routes. You risk your life for strangers, she observed. They're not strangers, Elias replied. They're potential survivors. Aurelian doctrine valued hierarchy. Elias could see the conflict in Veelrix's eyes as she watched him stop to help again and again. This is inefficient, she said. It's human, he replied. The station shuddered violently. This time, it wasn't internal. A massive shadow crossed the viewport ahead. Veelrix stopped. That's an Umbra command ship, she said. They've brought heavy assets. Elias followed her gaze. The ship was enormous, bristling with weapons, its hull marked with dark, shifting patterns that hurt to look at directly. They're preparing to fire, Veelrix said. They will cripple the station. They won't, Elias said. She looked at him sharply. You are certain? Pretty sure. He activated his wrist device again, this time opening a wideband transmission. He spoke calmly, clearly, without shouting. This is Elias Crow of Earth, he said. Umbra Command Vessel, you are currently targeting a station containing over 80 registered species. including several you rely on for profit and influence. No response. Elias continued. You can fire. Or you can listen. A pause. Then a voice replied, cold, distorted. You have 60 seconds, human. Elias nodded. Fair. He glanced at Veelrix. This is where reputation matters. He turned back to the transmission. Humans are not the strongest species. Not the fastest. Not the longest lived. What we are, is connected. Data surged across the channel. Every system you've bribed, every official you've manipulated, every shipment you've rerouted, we track them. Quietly. Because that's how humans survive in larger ecosystems. Veelrix's eyes widened as her own datapad lit up, mirroring the feed. You leaked this, she whispered. Not yet, Elias said. I scheduled it. The Umbra ship hesitated. You fire, Elias continued, and this data goes public across every trade network within 5 minutes. You don't just lose today. You lose everything. Silence stretched. The command ship's weapons powered down. Veelrix stared at Elias, disbelief etched across her features. You defeated them without firing a single shot, she said. They're not defeated, Elias replied. They are contained. The station lights slowly returned to normal. Security regained control sector by sector. Umbra forces began retreating, melting away into escape routes and emergency pods. Veelrix turned to Elias fully now, no mockery left in her expression. You said courage was acting after understanding the data, she said. Yes. And you acted knowing the cost. Elias nodded. Humans don't gamble with lives lightly. We just make the odds unbearable for the other side. She was silent for a long moment. When this reaches the council, she said finally, the balance of power will shift. That's up to you, Elias replied. I just make sure you get there alive. She placed a hand over her chest, a formal Aurelian gesture of respect. You were mocked, she said. Dismissed. Called weak. And? Elias asked. And you protected me better than an army. Outside the viewport, the Umbra command ship jumped to hyperspace, fleeing. The station breathed again. But Elias knew something Veelrix was only beginning to understand. This wasn't over. Because Umbra would adapt. And when they did, humanity would be waiting. The Grand Council chamber of Aurelian Prime was built to intimidate. Its ceiling vanished into artificial sky, stars slowly drifting in perfect formation. Platforms floated at different heights, each designed to accommodate species of vastly different size, gravity tolerance, and biology. Power gathered here, not shouted, not threatened, but assumed. On this day, every seat was occupied. Veelrix of House Thal stood at the center platform, her ceremonial armor restored, her posture flawless. The marks of the recent attack were gone from her body, but not from her eyes. At her side stood Elias Crow. Still human. Still small. Still wearing a plain grey coat. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. A human escort? Is that allowed? Why bring prey into the den? Veelrix raised one hand. Silence fell instantly. I am here, she said, her voice echoing across the chamber, to deliver testimony regarding Umbra Syndicate violations of interstellar law. Holographic displays ignited, filling the air with data streams, financial records, weapon schematics, corrupted treaties. Gasps followed. This was not accusation. This was proof. Umbra representatives attempted to interrupt, their voices sharp with outrage, but the chamber would not yield control. Too many eyes were watching now. Veelrix continued. This testimony exists because I survived an assassination attempt on neutral ground. Her gaze swept the chamber. I survived because of him. Every eye turned to Elias. Some saw weakness. Some saw curiosity. A few, very few, saw danger. He is human, Veelrix said. A species many of you consider fragile, chaotic, and inferior in physical design. Elias felt the familiar weight of dismissal settle over the room. He had lived with it his entire life. Veelrix straightened. "You are wrong." The chamber stirred. "This human did not overpower my enemies," she continued. "He did not intimidate them. He did not rely on strength or numbers." She gestured to the hovering displays. He understood them. Their habits. Their arrogance. Their certainty that humans were not worth preparing for. Elias shifted slightly, uncomfortable with the attention. Veelrix's voice hardened. That certainty nearly destroyed an entire station. Umbra's lead delegate slammed a limb against their platform. "This is manipulation. One human does not represent." "He represents a pattern," Veelrix cut in. Silence returned, heavier than before. "Humans adapt," she said. "They survive. They connect systems we barely notice and turn them into shields, weapons, and lifelines." She turned slightly, looking down at Elias. "He was mocked. I mocked him." A ripple of surprise spread through the chamber. "I said, you're too weak to guard me, human." Her voice lowered. "I was wrong." Elias felt every eye burn into him now. Veelrix faced the council again. Umbra believed power was measured in fear. Humans measure power in outcomes. The final data packet deployed automatically. Umbra's network collapsed in real time. Assets frozen. Ships seized. Allies withdrawing. Across the chamber, Umbra representatives froze, not in fear, but realization. They had lost. Not to fleets. Not to weapons. But to preparation. The council erupted into layered conversation, languages overlapping, translators struggling to keep pace. Finally, the High Arbiter rose. "The testimony is accepted," the Arbiter said. "Umbra Syndicate is hereby sanctioned, dismantled, and barred from council influence." The stars above the chamber shifted subtly, forming a new configuration. A symbolic reset. Veelrix exhaled slowly. It was done. Later, on a quiet observation balcony overlooking Aurelian Prime, Elias leaned against the railing, watching the planet rotate beneath them. The city lights looked like scattered constellations. "You changed history today," Veelrix said. Elias shrugged. "I just made sure you finished a sentence." She studied him. "You could have stayed hidden. Humans are very good at that." "So are predators," Elias replied. "Eventually, you have to stand up." Veelrix nodded thoughtfully. "The council has proposed something." Elias raised an eyebrow. "That sounds dangerous." "They wish to establish a permanent human advisory presence," she said. "Not as soldiers. Not as enforcers." "As what?" Elias asked. She smiled faintly. "As problem solvers." He considered that, looking out at the stars. "Humans don't like being underestimated," he said. "But we hate being misunderstood even more." Veelrix turned fully toward him. "The galaxy will not make that mistake again." Elias glanced up at her towering form. "They probably will." She laughed, soft, genuine. "And you will be there to remind them." He pushed off the railing. "I'm not special." Veelrix tilted her head. "No. You are human." That word carried weight now. Across the galaxy, data traveled faster than ships. Stories spread. Of a small human who outthought giants. Of a species that survived not by domination, but by adaptation. Of a moment when laughter turned into silence. And somewhere, in quiet corners of space, powerful beings began rewriting their threat assessments. Because they had learned something essential. Never judge a species by its size. Never mistake humility for weakness. And never, ever, corner humanity without being ready for what it becomes. The stars continued to turn. And for the first time in a long while, they watched humans with respect.